Hello and welcome to my channel. Okay, today we're going to be talking about the Sigma 16mm f1.4 DC DN lens for Sony. 4 years ago I made a video about my experiences with that lens for Micro Four Thirds, and it's become the mainstay of my video work and is more or less glued permanently onto the front of my Panasonic G85. I like the lens so much that I decided to buy a second-hand one for my Sony A6500. Now, on a Micro Four Thirds camera, the Sigma 16mm lens has a 68.1 degree angle of view, which equates roughly to a focal length of 32 millimeters, on 35mm full frame. Put the lens on an APS-C camera like the Sony A6500 and the angle of view becomes 83.2 degrees, or the equivalent of a 24mm lens on a full frame camera, which is considerably wider. And in fact, that is what you're now watching me on. I am recording this on my A6500 with the 16mm lens wide open. Now in the hand, the Sigma 16mm feels very dense and substantial. The lens body is made out of what Sigma calls a thermally stable composite, which is substantially stronger than conventional polycarbonates while having similar thermal expansion properties to aluminium. The lens mount is made of chromium plated brass, which should ensure a long life. It's advertised as being dust and splash proof, but on closer reading of Sigma's spec sheet, there is only one seal, and that is at the lens mount. The lens comes with a bayonet mount petal lens hood, which has a ribbed grip to make attaching and detaching easier. There is a ribbed rubber focus ring of the fly-by-wire type, and while it feels smooth and easy to use, there are no hard stops at the minimum and maximum focusing distance. There are no other controls or switches, which mean if you want to switch between the autofocus and manual focus settings of your camera, you will have to use the camera controls for that. The Sigma 16mm has an optical construction of 16 elements in 13 groups, with 3 FLD glass elements, which is F low dispersion, which offers performance equivalent to fluorite, which exhibits less chromatic aberration than those utilising a traditional flint glass. There are 2 SLD, or special low dispersion glass elements, which also help to minimise the chromatic aberration, and there are 2 spherical moulded glass elements, which work to reduce optical aberration. So let's look at the optical performance of the Sigma 16mm f1.4. Well, straight out of the box, the optical performance of the Sony fitting lens is a little bit different to that of the Micro Four Thirds version. And the simple reason is that the Micro Four Thirds sensor crops the image circle that the lens produces more than the APS-C sensor, so it can avoid the dodgy areas. But the reality is, those dodgy areas are still pretty good. In the centre of the frame wide open at f1.4, the images lack contrast and appear a little soft, but stop down to f2 and the contrast and sharpness improve, and at f4 you get the best results. In the corners at 1.4, the image is rendered a little softer than the centre, but by f4 the corners match the centre of the frame. Diffraction starts to set in at f11, and it's really noticeable at f16. Without lens profiles applied, there is severe barrel distortion and vignetting. Once the profile is applied, all is good, at the expense of a tiny bit of corner sharpness. There is some axial or longitudinal chromatic aberration when the lens is wide open at f1.4. The fringing clears up as you stop the lens down. When it comes to transversal lateral chromatic aberration, well, you have to look really hard to find it, and what little there is easily corrected in post. Lens flare is well controlled with only a hint of veiling flare and some mild ghosting. And as I said earlier, a lens hood is supplied to help prevent this. Diffraction spikes or sun stars, they're not good, they're not bad, they're just okay. In terms of the bokeh, the 9 aperture blades create nice round balls in the centre of the frame. They can become slightly elliptical towards the edges. Looking at the focus transitions, however, they are nice and smooth. When it comes to autofocus, shooting stills wide open at f1.4 at 11 frames per second with continuous autofocus with lock-on focus and balanced priority shutter release, the best result out of a sequence of 40 frames was only 9 were critically in focus. However, switching to 3 frames per second with lock-on focus set to AF priority, a sequence of 20 frames had all of them perfectly in focus. The inference is that the Sigma 16mm is quick to focus providing you have the right menu settings in your camera. For video, the autofocus worked really well. It was responsive, smooth and accurate. Really, tracking a person walking around presented no difficulties. To make things harder, I tried mounting a stuffed toy to a slider at the minimum focusing distance and having it move fairly rapidly backwards and forth. And the camera and lens managed this very well. So I tried a smaller subject, this time Dancing Jesus, which also wobbled as it moved. And again, the autofocus did a good job of tracking the subject. So we can say that the autofocus of the lens in conjunction with the camera is really, really good. Now, talking of video, I tested for focus breathing, and there is only a slight amount, which should make videographers very, very happy. Well, what can I say? I absolutely love the Micro Four Thirds version and use it constantly. I approached this review with a little trepidation because I thought that putting it in front of a larger APS-C sensor would reveal the Sigma 16mm flaws. I needn't have worried. This is an excellent lens, and I would have been happy paying the full retail price for it, but having bought it second hand for just a smidge over the half the full retail price, and I'm over the moon. If you're on a budget and want a wide angle lens for Sony E mount, Canon M, Fujifilm X, Nikon Z and the L-mount Alliance, then you should definitely consider this lens, especially if you can find one in good condition second hand. Well, I hope that you found this useful. Thank you for watching, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video. Goodbye.